All right, everybody. Happy Friday. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Look, I'm excited for today's show because we have a lot of college basketball to talk about. A lot of you are familiar with Mark Adams with ESPN. I'm a huge fan of Mark's. He's become a very close friend over the years, and we haven't had him on in a while, and he has a very busy weekend. He's going to be on the call tonight for the Red Hawks, the undefeated Red Hawks, 24-0, ranked 23rd in the country. They're at home for a 9 p.m. tip-off with the Ohio Bobcats in town, and they're looking to remain undefeated and looking to remain in the top 25 conversation, as well as remain in the at-large conversation. And that's what we're going to talk about with Mark Adams coming up around the corner. Plus, if you are a Dayton Flyers fan, he told me he has a lot to say about the Flyers. The Flyers have a big one on Sunday. And, you know, it's a bounce-back opportunity for them because they've been punched around the last couple of weeks, the last couple of games for sure. And we're going to talk about that because Mark Adams will be on the call on Sunday on ESPN2 when Dayton welcomes in Davidson. Dayton 15-9, 6-5 in the A-10. Two of their last three games have been losses, and two of their last three games have been 30-point blowout losses. We're going to talk about that with Mark Adams coming up here just around the corner. But I do want to talk about the Red Hawks. Look, we have the Dayton Flyers in town, Wright State. I'm frustrated with them. I'm not going to lie. I push Wright State heavily. I'm a big believer in Clint Sargent and his staff, and I still think they're a great staff. Like, you're going to have tough losses. I wish in the sports radio space and the sports media space that you could be critical of a team or critical of a loss or critical of a whatever, and then not mean that, oh, man, you're a hater or you're looking to push a coach out or looking to have a kid cut or benched. No. But even the coaches will tell you, when you're in first place and you have an opportunity to take a 2-game lead in your league with 5 games to go and you lose to a team when you're a 10.5, double-digit favorite in, you can't lose those games. I love Clint. I love that staff. That's not what that's about. They'll tell you the same thing. They'll say, yeah, we should not have lost that game. They were down big, down double digits at one point. They came back. And it's one thing if you just, you dig yourself a hole too early and you can't undig yourself out. But they did dig themselves out. They had a 5-point lead with just a couple minutes to go and they squandered it. And that's a bad one. There's still a game because Oakland lost last night. They're still a game ahead in the league, but there's 5 games to go. They have Cleveland State on the road on Sunday, who beat them at home. That was another bad loss from a few weeks ago. All right. They still have another return game with Fort Wayne, who that's going to be tough because that'll be in Fort Wayne. There's still some tough games remaining. Another one with Robert Morris, which won't be easy. So that loss last night could be something they look back at and bite them in the butt. If they don't win the league, I'm going to say it's because of last night's loss, because that should have, put them in a position where they could have afforded another loss moving forward, but you squandered that. Not that you should be preparing for a loss, but you want to give yourself as much cushion as possible. And look, they're not out anything if you don't win the regular season, but anytime you have a chance to win a championship, regular season or conference tournament, you want to close the deal. And they may have squandered that last night. But Wright State doesn't take away from the great season that they have had. We're going to talk about Clint Sargent, and the job he's done replacing Scott Nagy. Mark Adams told me he's excited to talk about the job that Clint has done as well. So, yeah, big Mark Adams fan, I am. And he's going to be on the call tonight for that Miami game, and that's what I want to talk about. Think about how hard, it is for a team like Wright State, a team like Miami. We're not even at, it's so tough. We're not even trying to put them in the conversations with the power fours of the world, the Big Easts. All right. We're not talking about even the Dukes and North Carolinas. The gap. I've always said that I always found college athletics weird because if you tell me that Wright State and Duke are both Division I and you go check out both facilities and check out the resources and check out everything, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of silly. Hell, if you look at the resources that Dayton has compared to Wright State, it's ridiculously silly, but they're all D1. They're all running a race and they're all starting the race for, everyone's finish line is at the same spot, but everyone is starting the race from a different starting block. That's college athletics, especially D1. It doesn't make any sense as far as that goes, but it's so tough for mid-majors like this to get the opportunities or to get the forgiveness, if you will, that the Power Fours get. The gap between them is so wide. The gap is wide between even the A10 and some of these, the MAC and the Horizon and others. So what's really interesting to me is last night there was a graphic, and it's made its way around, where they were highlighting the Red Hawks, and they were showing their the projection, and it said right now, based on bracketology, that they are sitting anywhere between a 12 to an 11 seed, but it said the projection was out. This is a team that has been in the top 25 for almost a month now. This is a team that has not lost a game since, from all season. I mean, they're undefeated. They're 24-0. They have a good chance of being 25-0 coming up later on tonight. And they're 24-0, ranked 23rd in the country. And yet the projection for them when it comes to the NCAA tournament, it says out. They are a 9.5-point favorite tonight, have a very good opportunity to improve to 25-0. And even if they win tonight, there's a good chance that projection doesn't change. Miami is almost expected, or not almost, is expected to be perfect. Guys, is there a chance that Miami could run the table as far as the regular season goes? Okay, they're 24-0. They play their 25th game here tonight. They'll have 6 games remaining after that. They could be 30-31-0 and get knocked out and upset in the first or second round of the MAC tournament. Could they potentially be left out of the NCAA tournament? I think they could. I think they're dropping hints already. They're already letting you know in some of those graphics. Projection out. They're 24-0. They're the number 23rd team. They're the number 23 team in the country. They're the best story in all of college basketball. But yet the projection is out. I'm telling you, the one thing I'm a big fan of chaos. I love chaos. I mean, this sounds bad. I'm not being a hater here. I don't want Miami to run the table. I want Miami to do one of two things, or one of these two things is what I want. I want them to run the table and be undefeated in the regular season. And then I want them to get beat at any point in the MAC tournament. I really want to see what the committee does. I want to see chaos. I really want to see what the committee does, because every one of us, we believe that morally they should be in the NCAA tournament. But there is not one single tiny metric that supports them getting into the NCAA tournament. Right? Like, from the quad 1 and quad 2 wins, they don't check that box. Their strength of schedule ranks in the 350s. They don't check that box. Right? Like, I really want to see chaos. It's not that I'm saying I want to see them miss the tournament, but I want to see that committee have to make a tough decision. I remember years ago when in the college football playoff, when it was only 4 teams, I kept saying, man, I really want to see the Bearcats run the table, go undefeated, win the American championship. And I want the committee to look at them and say, you're an undefeated conference champion, but we're going to put a 2-loss whoever in. Now, the Bearcats ended up making the playoff that year. But to me, I don't think that the committee made a tough decision, because Ohio State had lost their 3rd game. It really wasn't that tough of a choice to put them in. You know what I mean? Like, Ohio State, once they got that last loss, it was like, oh, well, that wasn't controversial. Once you lose your 3rd game, there's no way in hell you're making the college football playoff. So it was easy to put Cincinnati in. There was no other team rivaling for that 4th spot. So there was no chaos. There'll be chaos here. If Miami finishes the regular season undefeated and gets knocked out in the MAC tournament or even the MAC championship, I don't think there's a round of the tournament for the MAC tournament that they could be knocked out in and still consider themselves safe. I think that they have to win the whole dang thing to get in. And here's what, this sounds crazy. I don't want them to get in by winning the conference tournament. I want them to get in with an at-large. And I don't want them to bail out the NCAA. If they win that conference tournament, it bails out the NCAA. For one, the MAC, and deep down, the MAC, they'll never say this, but we all believe it. It's good business here. The MAC doesn't want Miami to win the conference tournament. Deep down, they don't want Miami to win that conference tournament, assuming that they would get an at-large bid, because then whoever does win the MAC championship, whether it's a Kent State, and there's some really good teams, in the MAC, let's say Kent State wins the MAC tournament, wins the MAC championship, right? Now they're a bid stealer, and now the MAC gets 2 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's big time financially, right? So that's huge. I think deep down the MAC is even kind of like fingers crossed. We want Miami to go undefeated in the regular season and be knocked out, maybe even in the MAC championship, because that's how they get 2 teams in. So that's kind of how I sit back and view this. So I want one of 2 things to happen, that they go undefeated in the regular season and get knocked out in the MAC tournament, because I want to see the NCAA, I want to see them keep Miami out, undefeated in the regular season, ranked in the top 25 all of 2026, basically. I really do want to see. I want to see chaos. That's what I want to see as far as that goes. So I don't want them to win the conference tournament. I don't want them to bail out the committee. Shaw, what up, Shaw? Shaw says, yes, there's a high chance that they don't make it if they don't win the conference tournament. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I want to see. I'm not rooting for Miami to fail. I'm rooting for the NCAA to be put in a tough spot, because you think they've been ripped before, and they will be ripped no matter what, because there will be a team that they leave out. There will be an impressive mid-major out there that's won 27, 28 games, doesn't win the conference tournament, and is ultimately left out, and they'll be criticized for that. But Miami, if you're an undefeated regular season top 25 team and you get bumped in the second or third round, quarterfinal or semifinal, or maybe even the MAC championship, do they have the cojones to actually keep Miami out? Man, I'm really curious to see what's going to end up happening when it's all said and done. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Mark Adams with ESPN. He's going to be on the call later on tonight for the Redhawks showdown with the Bobcats. Top 25 Maction, 9 o'clock the tip-off on ESPN. Mark Adams, one of my favorite basketball personalities out there. He's going to hop on the show with us when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll talk about the Redhawks. We'll talk about the Flyers' struggles. Mark Adams will also be on the call on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Dayton welcomes in Davidson after a week off. Dayton has had a lot of time to lick their wounds, if you will. But Mark did text me earlier. He said, hey, tell the Dayton fans to tune in. He has a lot to say about the Flyers and their recent struggles and how big of a game this is on Sunday. We'll talk about that and more with Mark Adams. We'll be right back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
The Justin Kinner Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Thinking about a new home, a remodel, or an outdoor upgrade? Celebrate 70 years at the Miami County Home and Outdoor Living Show, presented by 84 Lumber, February 13th through the 15th at Hobart Arena in Troy. Talk one-on-one with local experts, see the latest ideas and trends, and get practical advice for your next project. Admission is free, powered by T-Fiber, February 13th through the 15th. Don't miss the Miami County Home and Outdoor Living Show. Your home, your style, trusted for 70 years.
I'm Boomer Esiason. My mom died from cancer. She was only 37 years old. She didn't have life insurance, and that was devastating for my family. That's why having life insurance is so important to me. Ethos makes it fast and easy. Get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. You can get up to $3 million in coverage with no medical exam.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/play. That's ethos.com/play. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Hi, I'm Michael from the Warren Treaty. You know the jingle. Now discover the facts about Ozempic, a GLP-1. Only Novo Nordisk makes FDA-approved Ozempic. Learn about the real thing.
Talk to your healthcare professional today. Call 1-833-OZEMPIC or visit Ozempic.com to view the medication guide and to learn more about Ozempic. Semaglutide injection 0.5 milligram, 1 milligram, and 2 milligrams.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Some people just know you can save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
Hey, it's Keith Byers. Tax season is here, and I'm sure you're thinking about who is going to do my taxes. Try my friends at Arrowhead Tax Service in New Carlisle. Call Michael and Joe today at 937-543-5770. They're ready to serve you at 100 South Church Street in New Carlisle. Arrowhead Tax Service gives back to the community through athletics and nonprofits. And all new clients save 10% off. Online at arrowheadtaxservice.com, where their target is your satisfaction.
1410 Wing AM, Dayton's ESPN Radio, powered by.
Get a full synthetic oil change for just $74.99. Plus, earn $7 toward your next service with Duramax dollars at AAA Tire and Auto Service. Offer ends February 28th. See store for details.
A is for ABS, B is for BCM, C is for CVT, D is for, don't worry, we're not going to quiz you, because at Carroll Works Tire, we know the auto industry is full of acronyms. But here's the one that matters the most, tire. Trust, integrity, reliability, expertise. Carroll Works Tire, keeping Dayton rolling from A to Z. Find us online at c-wtire.com or talk to a real human at 937-461-5441.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, ESPN's Mark Adams, he just texted me. He said he's at 3:35. We're going to have Mark Adams on at 3:35 coming up here in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Mark will pop on with us. So while I have you guys here, Common Man and T-Bone, I know that's no longer the show that's over on The Fan, but both of those great hosts over in Columbus still doing shows over there. And I found this interesting because a lot of controversy was stirred up because Jonathan Smith on 97.1 The Fan over in Columbus, he said that fans need to stop rooting for Ohio State to make the NCAA tournament. And so much was made of this particular take. And, you know, I always laugh sometimes, like when a common sense, like a lot of the times, in my experience, sometimes the hottest takes are the most common sense takes that people just don't know how to deal with. Like if you actually like, because the cool thing on social media, the cool thing to do on social media is to be outraged. So when Jonathan Smith in Columbus said that, you know, people need to stop rooting for Ohio State, you know, they're 16-8. All right. They're once again entrenched on that NCAA tournament bubble. They have 7 regular season games to go, and Ohio State is currently listed as the first team out of the tournament, according to Bracket Matrix. Of course, you look at ESPN's Joe Lenardi and others, a lot of the prognosticators out there, they have Ohio State as either, you know, on bubble watch. Like, you know, and I guess for some of us Buckeye fans here in Dayton, I guess you could kind of think the opposite. You should actually be pulling for them to make the tournament, because if they are a bubble team, that means they'll probably be playing in Dayton in the first 4. All right. In a 40-second clip that was posted on Twitter earlier this week, T-Bone, which is Jonathan Smith, as we talked about, T-Bone's his radio name. He says, we have to acknowledge that it is not in the best interest of Ohio State basketball to make the NCAA tournament this year. He went on to say, like, stop it. Stop rooting for it. We don't want it. We don't need it. They need to miss the tournament, because that's the only way things are ever going to change around here, is if we finally acknowledge where this program is and what it is. And I have no clue why everyone is mad at him for saying that, because not only is that frame of thinking accurate for Ohio State, I think it's very accurate for Dayton as well. You know, it may not feel like it, Flyer fans, but I do think the best thing that could have happened were those couple of behind whoopings that just happened against St. Louis and VCU, because I do think that the athletics department for Dayton truly believes that they are the face of the A-10, and they are not. I think they truly believe that they are a lot closer to being an elite product than what they actually are, and they are not. So what ends up happening is when you do, you know, if they would have caught fire and made the NCAA tournament, I actually think, as weird as this sounds, that would set the Flyers back. And I know what T-Bone in Columbus is saying about the Buckeyes, because he's saying the same thing about Ohio State. We know when you watch or listen to Ohio State basketball, there's something there, but there's not enough. And it's the same thing with Dayton Flyers basketball. You watch it, It's good. There's something there, but it's not enough. And when you're good and you're winning games and you're winning some games in November, December, you're getting some nice non-con wins and you're right there in the mix up into the very end, and you're bringing your fans on an emotional roller coaster journey. And you have your athletics department boosters who are along on that journey as well. Your NIL, collectives and everything. Everything just, you feel like you're this close. Hey, you know what? We're this close. So let's not overreact, right? Because Anthony Grant, to his credit, and Jake Diebler, to his credit, they're very good coaches. They're not going to lose a lot of games. They're actually going to win a good chunk of games. More times than not, they're going to win 18 to 20 plus games this season. But more times than not, they're going to lose double-digit games every year. They're good coaches, and they're going to win games. But Dayton doesn't view themselves as just a good program. They view themselves as an elite program. And there's nothing elite about missing the NCAA tournament 7 times in 9 years. I'm being nice because it's actually 8 times in 9 years. You know what I mean? So I get what he is saying. If Ohio State catches fire, and because they're a metrics anomaly, by the way, because they don't have any real good quality wins, but they don't have any bad losses either. And some of their losses are good losses, if that makes sense, because they didn't get blown out against North Carolina. They didn't get blown out against Virginia. Or they have, look, you go look at their whole resume up and down. There's not a red flag on it. It's just the losses keep piling up. They're this close. So if they make the NCAA tournament, where's the urgency of Ross Bjork in the athletics department, who I know they said they're going to increase the revenue share for the basketball program, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't want to hear that they're going to increase the revenue share. I want to hear that they're going to go all in on the revenue share. That's what I would want to hear as a Buckeye fan. Same thing if I'm the Flyers. If you fight back and you make a run to the A-10 final this year, as great as that would be to cap off the season with some kind of momentous run, you're almost doing yourself a disservice. You should root for the Flyers to fail the rest of the way, as stupid as that sounds. I agree with T-Bone over in Columbus. It's not that crazy of a take. I had this take a while back. I said, the best thing that can happen for the Cincinnati Bengals is if they miss the playoff, because every time they make the playoff, the buffoons that run that front office sit there and say, see, we're a 9-win team. See, we missed Joe Burrow for some of the season. I know you're not a 9-win team this season, but the last couple of seasons, missing the playoffs while still finishing above 500, they just kept latching on to some of the positive stories. Hey, we had a historically bad defense, but we still won 9 games. Hey, we had historically bad defense. We still won 9 games. Imagine if we had a good field goal kicker, we actually would have made the playoffs, won 10 or 11 games, and it's a much different vibe and feel. Sometimes you need to hit rock bottom for you to bounce all the way back up. When you're flatlining, when you're just kind of hovering in the middle, you win a game or two that gets a jolt of excitement one night, and then you lose another game where you're like, what the hell are we watching? That's Dayton basketball. That is Ohio State basketball. I have no clue how T-Bone is the bad guy in that, because when I heard that clip and thought about it, I thought of Dayton basketball right away. Them getting hot and winning games is actually not a good thing. Not a good thing. I think that actually would be a disservice to the program at this point, because they need to get a coach in here that's going to do something different. And for those of you who say, well, be careful what you ask for, because, Anthony Grant still wins a lot of games. With the resources and everything that Dayton provides, winning should not be something you're surprised by. Missing the NCAA tournament is something you should be surprised by. Missing it regularly is something you should be surprised by. Anthony Grant winning 17, 18, 19, 20 games, that should be the base expectation at Dayton. And by the way, you look at Dayton this season and you look at where they're at right now. I mean, they're sitting at 16 wins right now? I mean, they're sitting at 16 wins, and they have still more than about 5-6 games remaining on the season. Guess what? They're probably going to get to that 18, 19 win mark. They'll probably win 1 game in the A-10 tournament. They'll get to 20, and then guess what? Anthony Grant, with wins over Marquette, with wins over Florida State, they played tough. They played their little hearts out against BYU. 18, 19, 20 win season. What are we mad at AG for? They're winning games. That should be that's not AG winning games. That's Dayton's naturally winning games, because Dayton's a naturally gifted, extremely rare program at this level that has all the resources that it does, that has the fan base it does, that has the arena that it does, the resources, the tradition. All of those things are why Dayton's winning basketball games right now. You got to get someone in there with a different voice that's going to change the direction of the program. Ohio State's slightly different because I don't think it's a Jake Diebel problem. I do think it's a rev share problem. His roster is not nearly as talented as some of the others. I like Gabe Cupps, but Gabe Cupps isn't getting it done to elevate the Buckeye program as far as that's concerned. You know what I mean? Like, I love the Brandon Knoll edition, but, I knew that wasn't going to go over very well. Now, he was solid when he was healthy, but, like, those were the transfers that they went after. They weren't, Brandon was a hell of an addition. He was preseason player of the year for the Horizon the year before, and he was the best player on a tournament contender. I get that one. The Cupps one, they put a lot of stock into Cupps, and Cupps has been okay. And I'm not bad-mouthing the kid. He was one of the best storylines in this area. Don't get me wrong. And I want him to be the guy in Columbus, but that hasn't worked out the way everyone had hoped and anticipated it would. Ohio State has to swim in deeper waters to get bigger fish. And the only way that you do that is if fans start quitting on you, the athletics department starts panicking and realizing, man, the only thing we could do is to invest more. That, like, sometimes it has to get way worse before it gets better. So winning 20 games, making the tournament, getting knocked out in the round of 32, if you're lucky, not going to get it done. I get what he was saying. And if I'm Dayton, if I'm Ohio State, I think they're very similar programs in regards to where they're at amongst their fan bases at this point. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Ron Howard said, just because Anthony Grant won't come on your show doesn't mean you have to hate. I'm not hating. And Anthony Grant has not been on the show in quite some time. And I don't expect him to come on the show. They only reward the media that holds the bucket for him. I don't hold a bucket for him. So that's fine. Jesse, what up, Jesse? Jesse says, I think Dayton is the face of the A-10 solely because of the arena. I think Dayton's the face of the A-10 because they should be the face of the A-10. Like, they should be a better program than VCU. They should be a better program than St. Louis. But we've seen St. Louis move on from a very, very good coach. A new coach comes in and has them not just where they were, but ahead of where they were. Like, St. Louis was terrified to move on from Ford. They were terrified to move on from their coach years ago. And they finally did it, and I think they're doing pretty well. We've seen VCU go through how many coaches the last couple of years? And every year, regardless of who the coach is, they just keep winning. That's a program that knows who they are and has confidence that no matter who is the head coach, that they're going to still play at a high level in the conference. I feel like Dayton's like terrified. They feel like Anthony Grant's their only answer. And I'm like, if that's the only answer, that's like one of them trick multiple choice questions where, like, you have the D, all the above, where that answer looks like the right answer, but that answer could be it too. I don't know, man. They need to freshen this up. This ain't it. And you're going to bring Anthony Grant back, and we're going to do this whole thing again next year. They're going to beat up on a bunch of nobodies that they pay to come get beat up on at UD Arena. Then, to their credit, they're going to go play some high major Power 4 teams, and they're going to play. They're going to get some wins. They're going to play well. And you're going to feel like, man, if they could do that against those teams, just look out for the A-10, baby. And then they're going to lose to LaSalle. And then they're going to stub their toe against St. Joe's, and they're going to do what they do every single year. Because it's easy to get a team motivated to play good teams. Where you really earn your money is how do you get your teams to rise up to play the nobodies. And that's something that Anthony Grant has struggled in his entire time in Dayton, except for the one outlier year of 2020 when you had an NBA lottery pick. And when you take an NBA lottery pick away from Anthony Grant, it's good, winning, solid basketball, but you're not winning the A-10. You're not winning the A-10 tournament. You're not getting to the NCAA tournament. And, the only time he's made the tournament, technically, NBA talent. Deron Holmes, Obi Toppin. And there's not a lot of Deron Holmes and Obi Toppins just floating around lining up to go to Dayton to be underpaid compared to elsewhere. So you need a coach that's going to come in and win whether you have NBA guys or not. It's great to have NBA guys once every couple years. And that you feel like $1 million on draft night when you hear with the whatever pick in the 2020 whatever NBA draft, the such and such team selects so-and-so. Dayton Flyers. That feels awesome. It's great on social media. You get to do that little cute built here thing. I don't think fans care about who's built here. I think they care about winning in March, NCAA tournaments, Elite Eight runs, the Archie Miller era. Archie Miller Didn't have NBA guys. I mean, Scoochie hung around in the G League for a bit. Charles Cook got an opportunity for a bit. I'm sure I'm missing one obvious one, but I mean, like, come on. I don't care about the NBA. If you're a fan of the NBA, watch the NBA. But if you're a fan of college basketball and March Madness and the NCAA tournament, maybe go in a different direction. All right, let's talk with Mark Adams. Mark Adams from ESPN. He's going to be on the call tonight for the Red Hawks and the Bobcats. That's a 9:00 tip-off. We'll have that for they'll have that for you on ESPN, and then he'll also be on the call on ESPN2 on Sunday. And he texted me earlier and said he has a lot to say about the Flyers. He's very excited about that Flyers-Davidson matchup on Sunday. So we'll talk Flyers, we'll talk Red Hawks, we'll talk Wright State, we'll talk all things college basketball when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Mark Adams next.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Connoisseur Media Dayton is looking for a part-time street team crew member to be part of our street teams in the face of our 5 stations. Duties include driving station vehicles to and from remotes and events, setting up and breaking down equipment, meeting and greeting remote and event attendees, coordinating registrations for station giveaways, and handing out station swag items. The ideal candidate must be a self-starter with the ability to take direction, possess excellent communication and customer service skills, and enjoy working in a team environment that is dynamic and fast-paced. Candidates must have a flexible schedule, great driving record, and a keen attention to detail.
Celebrate Valentine's Day with a beautiful I Love You combo from First Florist and Greenhouses. The I Love You combo features 12 premium red roses designed in a red glass base with lush greens and baby's breath. It's accented with a glitter heart pick and accompanied by a heart-shaped box of hand-painted assorted chocolates. First Floors and Greenhouses, 1306 North Troy Street in Dayton. Family-owned and recognized for quality since 1905. Order the I Love You combo by phone or online at firsttheflorist.com.
Back to the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. You could text or you can call, and we'll get to your calls more coming up here just around the corner. Again, happy Friday. We welcome you in heading into the weekend. Mid-February, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. How about that? Which means it's the halfway point of the month of February, which means we are getting closer and closer to my favorite month of the year. Everyone's usually probably, December because of Christmas. My Christmas is the NCAA tournament. My Christmas is all the madness that comes in March. And I think me and my next guest are very similar when it comes to that. I'm very excited to bring on our next guest. It's been a while. Mr. Mark Adams with ESPN, who has a big call tonight with the undefeated Red Hawks, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. But Mr. Adams, welcome, sir. Good morning. How are you?
Justin, great to see you. It's been too long since we visited last, and you're right. Look, it may not be Christmas quite yet, but trust me, it's Thanksgiving in Oxford, Ohio. We're all giving thanks for the best, you hit it on the head, the best college basketball story in the country of the undefeated Red Hawks. And I have the privilege of calling that game tonight, and so I'm just thrilled.
So I've been following you on social media. You've been at practices recently. You had a chance to catch up with, Wally Zerbiak, Travis Steele, the head coach. You've got to see some of the behind the scenes workings of kind of what makes this team tick. We said it, best story in college basketball, mid-major, out of the MAC, undefeated, top 25. And yet that pressure is not getting to them. I mean, they're continuing to rise to the occasion. They're blowing opponents out, winning close games, winning in overtime. They're checking off all the boxes. Yeah. They're a fun team, as you know.
Justin, it's been fascinating for me to be a part of this journey. A small part of it as I watch, from afar. But I was involved with St. Joe's when they had Jameer Nelson, and they went on their streak, back in the early 2000s, late 90s. And then I also was a part of calling Murray State and their rise to 23-0 in a national ranking with Steve Prohm and Isaiah Cannon. And then I got the privilege of watching Wichita State actually called their record-breaking 31-0 game. They eventually 35-0 before they lost to Kentucky in the NCAA tournament as a number 1 seed, by the way. And now to watch to watch Miami and Travis Steele navigate this, it reminds me of how Greg Marshall navigated it. Greg Marshall had a theme for every game, but the one thing I remember most about the whole thing was that Greg had one word that entire time, which was appreciate. And I was a part of that. I appreciated it, being a part of it, to be able to be in their locker room. I actually spoke to the team after they won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. That's the vibe that I get from Miami. Like, they appreciate it. The moments aren't too big. You know, more cameras now. You got Wally Zerbiak, an NBA All-Star in there. You know, obviously, love and honor, right? I mean, Wally's all about Miami. And to see him in there playing pig with the guys yesterday, he actually was involved in some of the drills as sort of a guest coach. He spoke to the team afterwards. And you know, I don't get a vibe that this team is tightening up. I get a vibe that this team is loosening up. And Justin, I'll just give you one thought that Travis gave to his team 2 weeks ago, which was, let's learn from winning so we don't have to learn from losing. By the way, that'll be brought up in the broadcast tonight. I think it's a brilliant line from a head coach who knows exactly where he's at right now, the psyche of his team. And these guys are loose and playing great basketball, and it's just so much fun to watch. It's such a privilege to be a small part of it, maybe the voice of it all.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, the moment's not too big. I mean, when you really strip it down, like if you're a high major team, you're supposed to be in the top 25. You're supposed to be playing at your peak at all times, right? That's, you know, mid-majors want to play at that level, but that's not always the case. Think about it. Every time Miami welcomes a team in or walks into an opposing team's gym, that's an opportunity for an opposing team to either hand them their first loss of the season, or for that team to hand them their first loss of the season and get a top 25 win. They're getting the best of every team that they step on the floor with, whether it's in Oxford or on the road. And the pressure is going to continue to mount because maybe an at-large opportunity wasn't on the minds of these kids and Travis Steele and his coaching staff. Maybe that wasn't on the minds coming into the season or even halfway point of the season. But now that it's so tangible and right there, there's so many things that could break this team mentally. And you said it earlier, the moment's not too big. The lights aren't getting too bright. It's almost strange watching how they're embracing it, and it's almost fueling them, and they're getting better, which is kind of crazy for a team that hasn't lost a game as we sit here in mid-February.
Justin, it's a great point. And this is why I love visiting with you and talking about hoops, because I think you bring up the strongest point about this team. Look, it's great that they're 24-0. That's a really hard thing to do, okay? It's great that they've won 28 in a row at home. That's a really hard thing to do. But let me tell you what the hardest thing to do is, to go 6-0 in one possession and overtime games. 6-0. Look, they're the only team in the country that can say that. They are 6-0 in overtime games and one possession games. And here's the thing. It's a revolving door of heroes. And I hope we get into that a little bit tonight because, look, Peter Suter knocked down a huge shot to beat Buffalo. But Ian Elmer knocked down multiple big shots in multiple big games. And Luke Skaljak, who was the backup point guard to start this season. Evan Ipsaro, was a guy that, I love him. He's as fast with the ball as anybody in college basketball and smart with the ball as much as anybody in college basketball. And those two are best of friends. Look, Ipsaro is coaching Skaljak from the bench. Like, watch closely. If sometimes we won't get the camera angle, but he's as involved as anybody. He's helping his roommate who played behind him to play the best basketball of his life right now. And so it's really a revolving door of really good players that spread the ball. And Justin, here's the other thing in watching practice. I've never seen a ball move quicker on the basketball court. Look, I don't like where college basketball is today. And I'm not talking about NIL and all that stuff. Ball screen, dribble, ball screen, dribble. Drives me freaking crazy. I hate it. But I don't mind a ball screen, but I want to see the ball move off the ball screen. And yesterday, it was like a pinball drill. I mean, they're like pinball wizards. And those red, white, and undefeated guys sure play a mean pinball. I'm telling you. That ball's go boom, 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 boom. And then they always make the extra pass, which is a better shot. They're so hard to guard when they make a defense chase the ball. But you hit the nail on the head. It's the culture of this team and that they are so poised in late game situations. They're 6-0 in overtime and one possession games. That's unbelievable.
What makes them also fascinating too is, I mean, this roster is very similar to last year's roster. They had some injuries last year that kind of impacted them from maybe going on a similar run last year, of course. But, you know, you look around college basketball, the transfer portal. I mean, you have so many rosters who are hitting the reset button every year. Same coaching staffs, but almost having to hit the reset button every year. You talked about that ball movement and the chemistry, and a lot of that has to do with not a lot of roster turnover. I mean, there is a transfer in the mix there, of course, but it's a lot of returning players from last year. You don't get that ball movement. You don't get a lot of that chemistry unless you have a lot of the same players coming back from a year ago. That's what also makes them stand out. They played Wright State, back during the non-con slate, and it's speed, but it's quickness. It's the way they move the ball. You're right. It's just, I mean, they have a purpose with the basketball. They don't dribble without a purpose. They don't pass without a purpose. It's like they know what's coming 2 or 3 moves ahead of time in every possession, and that's just speaks to that team chemistry and that culture that you alluded to.
Example of one conference that got bleeded and one team that didn't. Okay.
Yep.
The American Conference lost 75% of their rosters from a year ago. It means 3 out of every 4 players that played in the American in the 24-25 season left. 90%, 18 out of the 20 top players in the American left. Okay. And if you watch the American this year, it's like the 10th or 11th best conference in the country. All right. And a lot of it's because there are all those new guys that are playing non-conference and they just weren't ready. They weren't ready to compete at the right level, and that conference suffered. Now, those teams are playing pretty well right now. They're better, and they act like basketball teams now. Early on, they act like individuals.
Yeah.
But Miami is the polar opposite of what happened in the American, where Travis Steele was able to secure a large majority of his roster that really mattered. And all those guys came back off a 25-win season after losing to Akron in a heartbreaker in the Mid-American Conference tournament. And I mean, the first day they got back, there was a pact that, hey, we're going to make this right. And man, are they making it right. But again, they're making it right in the right way. Offensively, they're as fun to watch as anybody in college basketball. And culturally is a widely used term that rarely applies. It applies here. And the culture that they have, the love that they have for each other, the brotherhood that they have for each other. Now they're winning. I get it. It's easy to love each other when you're 24-0, but also had to start from that loss to Akron when nobody's pointing fingers. They're just getting in the gym and making it right now.
Let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about, which is, of course, we said it's mid-February, Selection Sunday, still off in the distance, but also so close you could taste it. There's a lot of unknowns as far as how this team could shake out. Like, again, we know how mid-majors work. Like, you have to win your conference tournament to get in. I know they're sitting in the top 25 right now. But, Mark, is this team literally facing a scenario where they have to go undefeated, where they have to win their conference tournament to get to the NCAA tournament? Or is this a team that can maybe kind of, crack that ceiling a little bit and finally get the attention of the NCAA tournament committee when it comes to these types of things? The metrics don't match up the criteria of what you would normally associate with a at-large team, but they are undefeated. They are top 25. Are they really facing a scenario where they have to run the table, where they have to be an undefeated team? They almost have to be perfect just to get an opportunity that these high major teams do.
I think you said they almost have to be perfect, and even then, there's no guarantee. I think College of Charleston, my play-by-play partner tonight is Eric Rothman, and he looked this up, and we'll probably talk about it tonight. College of Charleston might be a pretty good barometer of where this team stands. College of Charleston, I was about 5 years ago. I don't know the date. I don't have the note in front of me, but they went 31-3, and they were projected to be a 12 seed. They end up winning their conference tournament, and they were a 12 seed. So, and their strength of schedule was about a 350. Okay. So it's a lot like what Miami is facing right now. So they made the NCAA tournament by virtue of winning their conference tournament, but they were a 12 seed, which means for those of you who don't follow March Madness, they wouldn't have gotten in unless they would have won their conference tournament. And I think Miami has very similar metrics to what College of Charleston had several years ago. And I think that's a comparison worth making. Look, the committee has never been sympathetic toward the quote unquote mid majors. We both know that. You know, I fought that fight now for 27 years on ESPN and for 30 years as a broadcaster now. But they're not going to listen to me. I already know that. I'm confident that they're not going to listen to that Adams guy on ESPN tonight, regardless of what I might think. But here's the reality of scheduling, and here's a peek behind the dark curtain of college basketball. There are plenty of dark curtains, by the way. There's room number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Okay, but this is one of them in scheduling. I've lived this life both as a coach and as a consultant. There's only one thing coaches lie more about than recruiting or NIL budgets, and that's scheduling. Okay, that's the number one thing that coaches lie about more than anything else that they do. I'm just telling you, all right? But when Travis Steele says nobody will play us, he's telling the truth. Because 25 wins last year, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? They bring the majority of their guys back. Look, I was at Washington State. That was my one stop at a power conference, okay? I did the scheduling at Washington State during that time. I'm telling you right now, if Travis Steele called me and said, hey, Mark, I'll tell you what, we'll play a guaranteed game at your place, I'd hang up. I wouldn't even listen to it. No, we're not playing you. We're going to play, I don't know, Prairie View A&M or somebody. We're not playing Miami, okay? And that's what happened to this team. Now, could they theoretically have gotten a game? Maybe, but I'm telling you, there aren't many power conference teams. They know who's coming back. They know how good you are, and they know how to stack wins in non-conference to help their conference. And then there's a collusion. I won't even get into all that stuff. We do that another day. But there's a collusion in scheduling among the major conferences that makes it not impossible, but pretty damn hard to get an at-large bid in conferences below. I mean, look at it now. The West Coast Conference will probably get 2. Okay. The Mountain West, 3. Then after that, it gets really murky as to any other conference in the country that might be a multi-bid conference other than the major conferences. That's the truth of it. And that's what Travis Steele faces. That's what Miami faces. So their solution is win tonight, win the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, and take care of business themselves.
Well, the next one coming up later on tonight, Mark Adams, our guest right here again. If you're just tuning in, it's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. The Red Hawks, undefeated, 24-0, ranked 23rd in the country. They're at home tonight. They welcome in Ohio, the Bobcats, who are 13-12, 7-5 in the MAC. That's a 9 o'clock tip-off on ESPN, and our friend here, Mark Adams, is going to be on the call for some top 25 MACtion coming up later on. Now, you've been calling games for ESPN for a long time, and you've called conference championship games and tournaments for the Horizon League, so you're very familiar with Wright State even before calling those games. Clint Sargent in year 2 with the Raiders, a longtime disciple of Scott Nagy, and last year was his first year. It was clunky. They were one of the more efficient offensive teams in the country, but they just could not get it done defensively. I mean, ranked in the lower 300s when it comes to defensive efficiency. I remember talking with him in the offseason saying, hey, we want to continue being a high-powered offensive team, but we might have to sacrifice some of that because we have to get this defense right. And they have definitely done that. I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in the Horizon League and still one of the best offensive teams in the Horizon League. We talked about the portal a little bit ago. The portal has been very friendly to Wright State. They brought back a lot of familiar players in key roles, but they filled the gaps. TJ Birch, a transfer from Ball State, one of the best on-ball defensive players in the country, leading the country in steals right there at the top. Kid's phenomenal. This team's off to a great start. They're top of the Horizon League. Yeah. I know a bad loss last night, but Wright State, Clint Sargent, back to what we're used to seeing from them at the top of the Horizon League.
I'm a big Clint Sargent fan. I was a huge Scott Nagy fan. I mean, Scott is one of the best coaches a lot of people just don't know about. I mean, that guy can take yours and beat his and take his and beat yours. That's how good he is. And Clint Sargent is cut out of the same cloth. Look, I follow guys who become a head coach the first time. In fact, Adam Fisher is a great example at Temple. Okay. And there are others I could bring up. I'm Sean Miller at Xavier, his first year as a head coach. And there's a deer in headlights section of your career. And it's like your first 10 or 15 games as a head coach. That's your deer in headlight phase. And then you start being able to take those blinders off that you once upon a time had as a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator in basketball. And you start seeing bigger picture and the game slows down for you. It's like a freshman point guard. Early on, the game's too fast for them and they struggle with it, but then the game slows down and all of a sudden you got a pretty good freshman point guard. I think that Clint's gone through a similar way of going about his business and a similar way of development that has brought him to this point where he's a really good coach. He's had great influences. Now he's taken all those influences and he's turning it into Neapolitan. He's borrowing from here, borrowing from there, borrowing from here, and he's putting together his team now. And I think the hardest thing as a first-year head coach, especially succeeding a guy like Nagy, is do I continue to do what Scott did, or do I put my whole stamp on this? Back to Travis Steele, okay? He was a guy that at Xavier, I think his first year and multiple years at Xavier, I think he kind of did it the previous regime way. When he got fired at Xavier, he decided, I'm doing this my way. I know what I want on offense. I know who I got to recruit, and we're going to build this thing from the ground up my way. I think Clint is going through a similar process, just like Travis Steele did. Not that he got fired, by the way, but it's just that progression from a first-year coach, owning your own program and then building it the way you want to. And he's definitely grown as a coach, and his confidence has grown as well.
Yeah, Coach Sergeant Clint had shared a story at a coach's show recently where he said he happened to run in to Bill Self, right before his first year as head coach of the Raiders. And he said he asked him for advice, and said the advice that he was given was kind of caught him off guard. Bill Self said, yeah, don't win too early. And he said he just kind of looked at him odd, and he said he laughed. So then he said he saw him a year later and said, hey, I followed your advice. I didn't win a whole hell of a lot in year one. And he said, attaboy, that's how you do it. You don't want to set those expectations too high right off the bat. But, yeah, great bounce back year so far. 5 games left, still sitting atop the Horizon League. It'll be interesting. Have you gotten your assignment yet? Will you be doing Horizon League games? Do you know that yet?
So this year, I love my new bosses at ESPN. I can't tell you how great it's been. I've been with ESPN for 27 years. By the way, there's only 3 guys been with ESPN longer than me: Dick Vitale, Jay Billis, Bob Valvano. That's it. And I won't say anything about previous regimes, but I will say this about this one: they care, they get it, they communicate. And I got an opportunity to visit with Brian Boyle, who's one of the coordinating producers. He's my boss at ESPN. And one of the questions he asked me early on was, Mark, what do you want to do? What's your strength? And I talked about the conferences that I would like to be involved in, that I wanted more diversity in my repertoire. I wanted different types of games, mid-majors being the focus. And so I've had quite a few games in the American. I've had quite a few games, a couple in the Atlantic 10. The MAC, I'll do the MAC championship game to answer your question. And so I've got the MAC package all the way through now to the MAC championship game. And then I've also done some Big 12 games, which, remember, a lot of those coaches from the old American went to the Big 12. I've got a lot of relationships there. And so there was a path for me to do a couple of, 2 or 3 Big 12 games. And Justin, I'm having a blast because I get to see more basketball than anybody at ESPN, really, because I'm doing multi-conferences that way. And I think it gives me a little bit of a competitive advantage to see bigger picture.
Mark Adams, ESPN, awesome enough to give us some time today. Last thing on the way out, I know you have a Dayton game coming up. Anthony Grant, head coach of the Flyers, things not going. It's funny. This is how high the bar is for Dayton. You would think that this team is bottom third of the A-10. You would think that this team has a losing record. You would think that this team has just had a horrific year. You think of the wins that they had in the non-con. They got off to a 5-0 start in the A-10, been, hit with some injuries. They lost to some bottom mid-tier teams in the A-10. This fan base, they're passionate. As you know, you're very familiar with the Flyer fan base. They have certain expectations. Those expectations aren't being met. They're a spoiled fan base. This is still a winning team. All Anthony Grant does is win. But those tournament appearances, those tournament games aren't coming at the expectations of the fan base. And things are getting the fan base is anxious right now. What's your takeaway from afar of what's going on in Dayton right now with the Flyer program?
Well, obviously, I'm very aware of what's going on, and I'm looking forward to going back to the Dayton Decibel Dungeon, for another one. I'm really excited about that. I got a chance to visit with Coach McKillop yesterday from Davidson. I'll see Anthony. I'm pretty focused on this Miami game right now tonight, and then tomorrow I'll transition to more focus on Davidson and Dayton. But Justin, coaching's a cruel profession, and especially now, look, fans are aware that those guys run up and down the floor. They're professionals now. They're getting paid to do this. And I think that changes some of the fanatical psyche. And fan is short for fanatics. And I think that it changes that psyche. And I think that the Dayton fans obviously have been passionate for many, many years, but they've also been a program that's been the hunter. Well, in the A-10 now, and the way Dayton spends, they're now the hunted. And there's 3 or 4 teams in that league that spend like major conference teams. And Dayton is one of those teams. And so there's always going to be that high expectation, especially when you're putting your dollars and cents into it. And so it's February basketball. What every coach has in common in February, Justin, is that when you win, all you feel is relief. There's no euphoria. All you feel is relief. You're just glad to get a win and get the hell out of there. All right. When you lose, it's just abject destruction. You go home, you're just depressed. All right. So it's really the difference between that feeling of relief versus depression. I mean, and that's where we're at Dayton right now. Now that's where we're at a lot of places right now, by the way. But after you lose 5 out of 6, and it's the way Dayton has lost. I mean, St. Louis was an absolute ass whipping. Then VCU was a worse ass whipping. I mean, it was ugly to watch. Look, I'll tell you how much I'm not enjoying the Olympics. I watched the entire VCU Dayton game on the opening of the Olympics. I didn't watch the Olympics. Like, I turned over and watched the stuff, and I see some people painted white and flying around with wings on and stuff. Hell, I watched a 30-point blowout of VCU Dayton versus watching that crap. That's how desperate I am for basketball. You know, but I think Dayton, it's a big, big game. Look, this is a loser-out game. I mean, Davidson needs a win, but they're on the road, so they're playing a little bit of house money here. Dayton absolutely has to win this game to stay, I think, in the top half or in an enviable position in the Atlantic 10 tournament. This is a crucial game for Dayton to turn it around. Put up or shut up right now. That's what this game means.
All right, good stuff. Big weekend of college basketball. It starts tonight, 9 o'clock. Top 25 Maction on ESPN. And our friend and guest here today on a Friday, Mark Adams, will be on the call. Big one tonight. And you'll also be on the call for the Dayton-Davidson game on Sunday. So, Mark.
Real quick, before I go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, look, how long have you been doing this show now?
I'd say since 2018. So, wow, about 7 years now.
Yeah, 7 years. Hey, you have hit your stride, pal. I'm driving the other day listening to your show, and it was awesome. I mean, you do a great job. I'm proud of what you've done. You built a hell of a show there, and I'm proud to be on it. And I'm also proud to be on this game tonight. Just, you know me. You know how much this means to me.
Oh, yeah.
Just to help the mid-major fans and fans across the country. This is the first time a MAC regular season game has been on ESPN, the mothership, in decades. And I get to sit there at midcourt. I pinch myself all the time. And it's a thrill to be on your show. I'm proud of you. Congratulations on a great show that you built, the fan base that you built, and just keep it up, Justin Kidder.
Well, thank you. You're one of my favorite guests to have on, and looking forward to having you on again here in the future. Mark Adams, ESPN, on the call tonight for the Red Hawks and the Bobcats coming up later on at 9 o'clock. Mark, thank you so much, sir. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure.
All right, more of the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio. We'll be right back.
When you think of the most exciting team in Dayton, it's okay if you don't think of the doctors and therapists at Premier Health. We don't have jerseys or trading cards. We don't get primetime coverage. We don't sell out arenas, have good drip, or autograph sessions. We're just happy to be your team's favorite team.
Have you heard? Bath Creations has moved to their new location and showroom at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton. This gives you even more opportunity to see the incredible amenities and craftsmanship Bath Creation offers. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful, modern bathroom that is safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save an additional $500 off your purchase. Visit at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed. Plus, free premium delivery with any bed and base. Ends Monday. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
This is an important notice to all U.S. taxpayers. The IRS is giving away billions of dollars in tax savings through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative to aid delinquent taxpayers. This initiative was established for anyone facing financial hardship and unable to pay their back taxes. Qualifying and enrolling in this program will stop all collections, settle your delinquent tax problem, and even reduce what you owe by thousands of dollars. Call the hotline at People's Tax Relief to see if you qualify and get this free information by dialing 800-924-7415. If you have unfiled tax returns or cannot afford to pay your personal or business back taxes, you can now get the help you need. One simple phone call can resolve your tax problem and save you thousands of dollars. To see if you qualify and to get this important free information, call 800-924-7415. 800-924-7415. 800-924-7415.
If you need new roofing, siding or gutters, skylights or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. See Lance Roofing and Siding at their new location at 6903 Dayton Springfield Road in Enid. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722. Online at lanceroofing.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our clients' portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more. And then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Gem City Water. We're a local veteran-owned company that offers affordable reverse osmosis systems and installs them for free. Our water is tastier, healthier, and eco-friendlier. Visit gemcitywater.com for more info.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Progressive Insurance can protect your home and auto, and you can save money when you bundle your home and auto. Get a quote at Progressive.com. That's Progressive.com.
The ONN Daily Podcast. Get a recap of all the day's news from across the state.
ONN affiliate WBNS TV in Columbus has more.
Haley Kirby, reporting in downtown Toledo.
From the State House, Kevin Landers.
ONN Canton.
ONN affiliate WKYC TV in Cleveland explains.
In Marietta, Brett Wharf, ONN News.
Emma Henderson in Genoa.
The ONN Daily Podcast. Listen at ONNradio.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts from the Ohio News Network.
Progressive knows there are some surprisingly expensive things in life, like rugs. And people say a rug would really bring the room together. And sure, you don't know what that means, but it sounds important. Suddenly you're using words like jute and sisal. Then you see the price and lose it, because how can the thing you walk and spill on cost so much? So you devote your life to taking down Big Rug. But then you remember that switching your home and auto to Progressive could save you hundreds. So looks like Big Rug is safe. For now. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states.
The Powerama Custom Auto Show is here. Greene County Expo Center, Xenia, Ohio, February 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Vendors, live music, and kids' activities. Meet the First Lady of Drag Racing, Shirley Muldowney, and Butch Patrick of the TV show The Munsters. Live charity auction with the Tiger, Doug Mann, as guest auctioneer to benefit for love of children. If you love cars of all kinds, be there February 20th through 22nd. Xenia, Ohio, Greene County Expo Center. Adults $15, kids 12 and under are free. PoweramaCustoms.com.
Race to savings for your next project when you shop at Menards. Get the comfort and support you need with a new mattress from Serta. Find the perfect mattress for a deep and restorative night's sleep. Take control of your sleep and save big money on Serta mattresses now at Menards. Plus, view our weekly flyer on Menards.com and race to savings on more great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
When you think of the most exciting team in Dayton, it's okay if you don't think of the doctors and therapists at Premier Health. We don't have jerseys or trading cards. We don't get primetime coverage. We don't sell out arenas, have good drip, or autograph sessions. We're just happy to be your team's favorite team.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, it's 4:13 here in the Miami Valley. I'm Justin Kinner. I'm excited to go home. I tell you, boring weekend ahead. But so my wife is a vet tech, and they had a family that surrendered over their dog. And I'm a huge dog lover. I love my dogs. And, we probably didn't need another dog, but she told me that, yeah, they surrendered one today. She said she should have asked. I said, you never have to ask. Are you kidding me? If a dog needs a home, we're going to take care of that damn dog. So I get to go home and meet my new dog. I can't wait. I can't wait to get home. Sophie is her name, 12-year-old black lab. Sweet as hell, just based on the pictures, videos, and the text. So I can't wait. I can't wait to get home. But I hope everyone has some fun plans lined up for the weekend. It's been a college basketball heavy show, and probably going to close out with a lot of college basketball. I tell you what, Mark's from the area, and if you haven't heard his story, next time when we have more time, I mean, my goodness, I didn't even realize we went that long on the call. But his story of how he basically forced ESPN to hire him as a broadcaster. I mean, he's a former Division I basketball coach. He coaches baseball as well. I mean, he's one of the funnest personalities I've ever met is Mark Adams. And I'd love to work with him more. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's fantastic. And he's going to be on the call on Sunday on ESPN2 for the Dayton-Davidson game. And you heard him. I mean, you heard him mention the fact that they got their behinds handed to them 2 of the last 3 games. And, Dayton, the other thing, and I remember saying this on the show last week about the thing that's interesting about Dayton is we got into a debate earlier. I saw someone, I'm all over my ADD. Hold on, let's reset this because it ties into this. So we were talking earlier about Dayton, and I said Dayton is the face of the A-10. Someone in the chat disagreed. So Shaw said Dayton should be the face, but I don't think that they are. St. Louis, VCU, and others, I believe, have higher national clout. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I just don't feel like I agree with you. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like Dayton's the face of the A-10, but is that the prism of where I live? I live in Dayton. So when I see the A-10 logo or hear someone say A-10, I think of Dayton right away. But St. Louis, is very, very good right now, and they were very good for a long time. But you almost go a decade with only 2 NCAA tournament appearances. It's kind of hard for me to say you're the face of the A-10, but I still think it's Dayton. I think VCU has the argument to be the face of the A-10. I feel like it's Dayton, but it's probably VCU. Am I right? 937-518-1410. Is Dayton the face of the A-10? I'm fine if you say that they're not, and I'm fine if you say that they are. I'm very down the middle on it. I think I live in Dayton. I do a sports talk show in Dayton. So when I think of the A-10, I think of Dayton right away. But if you take your local cap off, big picture, is Dayton the face of the A-10? I don't know if it is. So the reason I bring this up is because last week I had thrown out the fact that, okay, I think Dayton, the problem with this roster is it's not as talented of a roster as Anthony Grant has had in previous seasons. And because of that, every time Dayton is on the schedule for any team in the A-10, that Dayton is going to get the best shot from that particular team. That's why when they lose to LaSalle, it's frustrating because if you lose to LaSalle, that means they wanted it more than you. And that's why I get frustrated with Anthony Grant-led teams, is because way too many times there are teams who just want it more than Anthony Grant's teams. And that can't happen. But a lot of times, those teams are pretty good because Anthony Grant has a lot of talent on the roster. I don't think this roster is that talented. So when you don't have a talented roster and you're not going out there with that killer instinct, that's why, because they're usually competitive against the best teams in the country and the best teams in the conference. They're competitive. Doesn't always mean they win, but you're going to need 40 full minutes to beat Dayton. That has not been the case this season since A-10 play started, even though they did start out 5-0. It's one thing to get punched in the mouth by 30 against St. Louis, but then to do it again against VCU all within about a week and a half stretch. They have a lot of good games remaining on the schedule. This one at least is at home against Davidson, but when they go on the road, there's a lot of fan bases that dislike Dayton, which means when they step into those raucous environments, you're going to be going up against teams that seem to want it more, and you're not as talented as you've been in years past, and that's worked against them. The interesting thing about Dayton is they got beat by 30 against St. Louis, 102-71. All right. They got beat by VCU 99-73. I know that's, obviously a little less than 30, but they got punched in the mouth. They're at George Mason. That George Mason game very well could be another 25 plus 30-point blowout if things go the way that they've got. George Mason's 21-4, 9-3 in A-10 play. They're right up there with St. Louis and VCU. And Dayton still has to go to George Mason, but they also still have to play St. Louis at home and VCU at home. Two teams that punched them by 25, 30-plus points. They still have to play those teams again, and you still have to go on the road at George Mason. Now, you have winnable games against Davidson. I said 2 o'clock on Sunday. I'm sorry, 4 o'clock is the tip-off at home against Davidson on Sunday. And, they'll have Duquesne. They'll be at Richmond, at George Washington, but a lot of road games coming up. You have Davidson this Sunday. All right, you have Duquesne on the 21st, St. Louis and VCU on the 24th and on March 6th, but you still have to go to Richmond. You still have to go to George Washington. You still have to go to George Mason. I think this team still has a couple more losses on the schedule. I think it can get ugly down the stretch. This team's not that talented. They've had very talented teams throughout the AG era. I would put this as one of the most untalented rosters to go along with those early rosters when he took over for Archie Miller earlier, in his tenure. But year 9, and this team's not going to the NCAA tournament unless a miracle happens and they win the A-10. But it'll be interesting. 937-518-1410. Jack, you are on live, sir. Is this Jack?
Yeah, this is Jack. How you doing?
I'm good, Jack. It's been a while. Haven't heard your voice in a while.
Well, hey, you know what it is? UD, I've been a UD faithful for many, many years.
Yeah.
And what happened in the early part of the year, we beat Marquette, we beat Georgetown, we beat, Florida State. But people don't realize that those 3 teams are in the tank right now.
Yep.
We're not, there's an old saying, and you've probably heard it many times. It's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmy and the Joe.
Yep.
And we don't have any shooters. And it's, we play hard. I watched that VCU. They were just more physical than us. Well, what's your take on it?
Well, no, for one, Dayton has always lacked shooters, and when they have had shooters, I don't think that they've done a good job of trying to get them as many open looks out on the floor. The fact that they had Kobe Brea for as long as they did, and I don't think we ever saw the actual best of Kobe Brea until he left and went to Kentucky. The fact that at one point you had Tumani Kamara, who, by the way, is blossoming into one hell of an NBA player. What a talent. I But you had Tumani Kamara, Deron Holmes, and Kobe Bryant on the same roster and nothing to show for it. That is still me really questioning a lot of things throughout this era. But yeah, going back to the Kobe Bryant thing, that's one of the best shooters they've had in years and really never maximized that. You're right, Jack. They do a poor job of going to get shooters, and when they do have them, I don't think they set them up for success. He's very guard-oriented, Anthony Grant is. He likes those isolation guards. He likes those playmaking point guards. But, man, they do not find – the shooting has just always been a problem for this team, especially in recent years.
Yeah. Well, it's always good talking to you.
Hey, Jack, is Dayton the face of the A-10? Do you think that they are the face of the A-10, or is it VCU?
No, it's got to be VCU because, they are more physical and they can shoot the ball. Besides Bennett, and did you notice late in the game the other night, he was still chirking them up, trying to get his, he's either great or he's not so good,
Yeah. Hey, Jack, I hope you have a great weekend, all right? Appreciate the call.
Hey, you know what I want to do, though, Jess?
What?
Let's get a quarterback.
Oh, you mean for the Browns? I was going to say, I don't know if the quarterback helps the shooting woes, but yes, for the Browns, absolutely. My goodness.
Hey, it's good talking to you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Always. Take care, Jack. Good hearing from you. 937-518-1410. But yeah, Dayton, a big one on Sunday. I was talking about this earlier. T-Bone, you remember the Common Man and T-Bone was the most popular sports talk show in the state. And for whatever reason, the fans split them up. Not my radio station, not my problem, but I thought that was an interesting one because Common Man and T-Bone both still work for the fan, but they split those two up. But T-Bone, I thought, he made a lot of noise earlier this week because of a take he had about Ohio State basketball that I agreed very much so with. And as I stated earlier before Mark Adams came on, I feel like Dayton fans should share the same feelings that he does about Ohio State basketball, even though he got destroyed by a lot of former Buckeye basketball players, which always cracks me up. And a lot of Ohio State fans, the same fans that don't show up to games and support the program, all of a sudden have a problem with being told not to support the program. I got a good kick out of that. The irony in it is kind of interesting. I understood what he said. I've said this about a lot of teams in the past, the Bengals most notably. I said, when Joe Burrow was fighting to come back, from injury, I kept saying Joe Burrow coming back and then winning games is probably the worst thing that can happen to the organization. Them making the playoffs is actually a horrible thing in 2025 because just when you think that they have hit rock bottom to get the front office's attention, they end up finding a silver lining. Hey, we were really bad this year without Joe Burrow, but we finished 500. Hey, we were really bad with Joe Burrow this year, but we had a historically bad defense and we were still 500. So imagine if we just tinker a few things. It's like they've always found a reason to convince themselves that, hey, you know what? We're not that bad. Everything's fine. We can work on some things, but, it's not the end of the world. And, sometimes that weird last part of the season surge, for the Steelers they're another prime example. There's times that they've won games and made the playoffs where I'm like, yeah, that's probably the worst thing that could have happened for that organization. As stupid as that sounds, because they're known for doing nothing but winning. Sometimes winning sets you back because it delays front office decisions, athletic department decisions. And so T-Bone's take on the Buckeyes was, we know that this front office or that this athletics department does not invest into the basketball program. So if Jake Diebler takes this team to the NCAA tournament and they somehow get in because they're a lot of prognosticators have them on the bubble, first team out, or playing in the first four, barely making the tournament, right? That could actually be the worst thing because this team does have deficiencies. And if they do make the tournament, they could be they'll be knocked out in the first round or the round of 32. And then Ross Bjork and the athletics department could say, hey, Jake Diebler, he put an end to the drought. We finally made the NCAA tournament. We finally got a taste of March. We got to see our name on Selection Sunday. That's what it's about, baby, right? So that would almost bail them out. And then they would lack that urgency of, well, we said we needed to spend more, but Jake Diebler is doing a good job, almost getting punished for your success. I believe Mike Tomlin was punished for his success in Pittsburgh. And I believe Flyer fans will be punished for Anthony Grant's success if they continue to win games down the stretch that really don't matter. And what I mean is, if they get to those benchmark wins, if they get to 20 wins on the season, let's say they're sitting at 16 wins. Let's say they win 4 of their last 6, or let's say they win, 3 and they finish at 19 wins and they win a quarterfinal game in the A10 tournament. And then, Neil Sullivan and company, they want to try to spew and spin the naive approach of, well, look at Anthony Grant. Even with all the deficiencies this team had, they still won 20 games this year, right? They still won 20 games this year. So, we're Anthony Grant. He's not going anywhere. I think the worst thing that can happen for the Flyers is to make the NCAA tournament. I don't think you have to worry about that now. But I understood T-Bone's take. I thought it was a good one. Making the tournament is actually a bad thing. It's going to take falling on your face for the fan base to finally rise up and rise against. And I don't mean storm it like it's the damn Capitol on January 6th. I just mean to rise up against the athletics department and say enough is enough. All right. I do think that athletics department takes advantage of your guys' loyalty, because they look at you guys and say, this fan base, they're passionate but dumb. All right. We don't need to do anything different because of their passion. And they're dumb because they won't do anything about it. And I think for the first time in a long time, you guys are starting to do something about it. I mean, I'm noticing more empty seats at UD Arena. Now, by the way, empty seats at UD Arena is, oh my God, we have 11,000 fans instead of 13,000 fans. Yeah, your life's not that bad. But, we're starting to see people's patience run a little thin. All right. I think this is soft, and I am adamantly and disgusted by this behavior of the athletics department. I think that they are gross for making those students change their shirts that said Fire AG on them. There was no cuss words. There was nothing derogatory on them. I thought that was soft and loser behavior from the athletics department. And whoever made that decision, I will say it to their face. And that's not me threatening or trying to act tough. I think you're a loser if you actually said, hey, go down there and make them take that off. Whoever made that decision, you're a loser. I don't care if I'm childish for saying it. I think you're a loser. That is such weird behavior to me. Pay attention to the message. The students, I don't know if you guys saw this, it went around on social media, that the students were threatened to have their student tickets taken away from them for the remainder of their time at Dayton if they were disrespectful to the players, or most importantly, to precious old Anthony Grant, who could do no wrong despite doing nothing but wrong, not making the tournament. I thought that was horrible. You're looking at the students and saying, hey, you're paying a lot of money to come here, but damn it, you can have an opinion, but it needs to be our opinion. I think that is weird and creepy cult-like behavior. And to be fair, they have the right to do it. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right that they could sit there and dangle those in front of. It's just like during COVID when they said, hey, you fans are not allowed to go to games this year, but you still need to pay us your license fees for your season tickets. And, oh, you lost your job because of COVID and you don't know when you're going to get your next paycheck. And you don't, everyone's fearing what's going on in the world right now. Oh, you're not going to pay? Oh, that's okay. We'll take your season tickets away and we'll give them to someone else. Like, I don't know. When you want to treat it so much like a business at the expense of your fans, how do they have fans? At some point, y'all have to wake up a little bit too. I think the way they're running things is horrifically bad. And it starts with, for one, settling for mediocrity with Anthony Grant. And then when certain fans do voice their opinion about it, most importantly, the students. And I love when people say, oh, it's just the students. The students matter more than anybody. The students, like making their careers as students at UD, making that as memorable as possible so that they want to continue to donate and contribute to be a part of the tradition. I don't know what good memories that they're going to have outside of the drunken nights with their friends, of course, but they're not going to feel connected to a school that threatened, hey, we know you don't like our coach, but if you voice your opinion about it, we're going to take your student tickets away. Kick rocks, ma'am or sir, or whoever, whoever's brain was not working correctly that tried to make that decision. I think that's wrong. Now, I get it. I'm a person that hates to be told what to do. Ask my mom, ask my wife. I hate to be told what to do. Ask Kev, ask my boss. I'm a stubborn individual. But, man, this is different. And I think even the most diehard fans can understand how messed up that is. When I saw that floating around today, because the last home game that Dayton had was the St. Bonnie win. And that's when the students wore the Fire AG shirts. And I'd given my opinion on it and I'd moved on. But then when I saw yesterday that they'd floated out the email that they threatened to take student tickets away, man, you got to be kidding. That's pretty messed up. 937-518-1410. Let's go to AJ. AJ, I appreciate you holding. You're on live, sir.
Hey, what's up, Justin? I'm just catching the end of the show. I know that you had Mark on. I didn't really get to hear what his take was, so I apologize if what I'm going to say may echo some of his sentiments, but I feel like you're being a little hard on Coach Grant, and deservedly, this has not been a great season. I do feel like what we've seen recently, let's call it the past 3 or 4 years with Dayton, is really a consequence of the transfer portal and NIL. Because when Coach Grant was hired, if you think historically, UD's success has always been built on team continuity. So you have guys that come in as freshmen or sophomores, and they're staying for 3-4 years. They're able to learn a system. The UD's system now is isolation ball for the most part. You've got a collective group of 5 guys that are essentially playing individual ball because they're not learning the system that Coach Grant has. Coach Grant was successful when he was able to get guys to play a cohesive style of basketball. And with guys coming and switching, I mean, I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends who are season ticket holders. Half the time, each season, you've got to relearn who the guys who are on the team.
Yeah.
So I just don't think that Coach Grant is, and I think we're seeing it with a lot of older coaches, to where they're just not used to this hustle that you have to put in to constantly recruit your team. You constantly have to recruit freshmen, and you're constantly recruiting out of the transfer portal. It's probably exhausting. That's why we're seeing, some of these higher level coaches that are just, washing their hands of it and not doing it. So, I think some of what you're kind of giving Coach Grant is deserved, because, it's not an excuse that, because there's other guys that are being successful about it, but I just don't think it's Coach Grant's coaching style to fit this type of system. And when he was hired by UD, this type of system was in place, but it's not now. And I think we're really, now that we're starting to get a good window and a glimpse into what the transfer portal era and the NIL era is starting to look like, especially with it not being regulated, we're really starting to see what's detrimental to these mid-majors.
No, and every point you made is valid, but I also believe that even the teams that are having success, those same problems exist for them, but they've been able to pivot and adjust and make adjustments. I agree with you. Anthony Grant's system was based on what college basketball was when he started 9 years ago, and it was about that. That's why everyone was super patient with him at the beginning, because at the beginning it was, oh man, he got an empty cupboard from Archie Miller, right? And we knew back then that when you take over a program, you need about 2 years to really start getting some of your guys in place to start really buying in, and then, chipping away from there. That's no longer the case. For every year, it's the same thing for Anthony Grant. They win the same every year, AJ, and they lose the same every year. And he continues to recruit the same, and he continues to run the same offense and the same sets. Everything you said is true. And if we know that, then he knows that. And yet he just refuses to make any kind of adjustments. I don't get it. It's also on the school as well. I think they have way too many resources for them to be struggling the way that they are. I think there's a lot of stubbornness and a lot of pointing at all the changes in college athletics instead of going with the changes. And I think they're not getting left behind, but there are teams passing them. I mean, St. Louis gets a new coach and has already surpassed them. VCU always gets a new coach every couple of years, it seems, and they continue to be like a well-oiled machine. Dayton, this is a problem, and I think it's gonna get uglier too, because there's some potential blowout losses remaining on this schedule. You still have VCU again. You have another one with St. Louis, and you're at George Mason. We'll see if they could turn it around. Maybe this week off is much needed.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a UD fan for a long time. My parents have. And I'm not a delusional UD fan. I really feel like, as fans, we need to manage our expectations better. And I don't want to dog on Coach Grant. Yes, he could improve, but he's an older guy. Sometimes it's hard to change what your system is. And it's not just little tweaks here and there. He literally has to do a complete 180 on how he has coached and how he has coached in the past and even coming up from when he was at the other programs in the NBA. Now it's just a completely different playing field. And I mean, what would be a solution for him just to be like, you know what, I can't do this anymore and I'm going to retire?
That's probably what it's going to be. But I don't think this is up to Anthony Grant. This is where the leaders that be up top, everything you're saying is accurate. And they're seeing it and they're saying Anthony Grant can't coach today. He can't coach today's college basketball. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, but continuing to run him out there every year and watching him do the same thing every year, I think that could be pretty disruptive. It's already been disruptive, and I think it could be pretty destructive of the program. I mean, it doesn't take much to really just turn the fortunes of a program around, and losing, even though they're not losing, they're a 500 team, but their athletic director himself came out and said it's about making the NCAA tournament and winning championships, and they don't do any of those things. They just don't, and that's a problem.
That's why I said managing expectations. Yeah.
So you want to bring, like, this is what Sully always says, and I agree with him. You want them to bring the expectations down? You don't want the program's expectations to be NCAA tournament or winning the A-10? And I'm not arguing with you. Me and you, you've been a loyal caller. I'm not trying to, like, get in a debate with you, like, to that level. But, like, that's where me and you have a disconnect on. I would never want my program's expectations to be lowered just because we don't have a coach that can accomplish those or surpass those. That would be my problem.
So what I would say to that is those expectations are set by the athletic director. And yes, in our minds, in a perfect world, we would love to make the tournament every year. But in reality, even in the great years, even in the Archie years, we weren't making the tournament every year. So maybe, it starts at the top and having more realistic expectations as to, maybe it's, maybe a real expectation would be, hey, let's start off with winning the A-10 regular season. Not necessarily, because I feel like with Neil Sullivan setting those expectations, you almost set yourself up for failure if you do not meet those expectations, obviously. So I personally, as a fan, I don't have those expectations every year.
Yeah.
Now I want to see UD play well, and I love going to the games, and I want them to do well in the conference. But if my expectation every year is for them to win the A-10 and win the A-10 tournament and make the A-10 being at large, and they don't do it, then what is it? Is it a failure season on my end?
I don't know. I mean, look, that's what makes all this interesting. It's not just an opportunity for programs to adjust, but the fans have to adjust as well. And I think that's one of your points as well. But AJ, hey, I appreciate the call. I hope you have a great weekend, and hopefully they get a win on Sunday.
Yeah, enjoy your new dog.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio, 439, 440 here in the Miami Valley. Look at that. I'm going to be off for a couple days early next week. I'm heading home for a funeral. So this will be the last show, obviously, for this week, and I'll be back next Thursday. So just a heads up, I'll be out for a couple days next week as far as the show's concerned. But no, I get what AJ is saying, but I mean, that's, and again, I don't want to be harsh with AJ because I'm not going at AJ, but AJ's take is, that's a common take by a lot of Flyer fans, and I just don't understand it. Like, think back, we bring up Archie Miller. The program was at a peak, all right? And I don't mean like peak as in they peaked, but it was at a peak time in this school's history, right before college basketball changed, yes, but you went and you got an alum who tugs on the heartstrings of all Flyer fans, which is kind of what you need in a day and age where you're having a hard time having a connection with the players who change all the time. It is nice having a coach that you have a connection with because you watched or remember when he played here. But that's where it kind of stops, because Anthony Grant, with all the winning he does, you act like that's only because of Anthony Grant. It's because of the money that the NIL revenue and all that stuff that the program has, the collective, the resources, the arena, the city, the fan base, everything plays a role in why Anthony Grant came here and is winning games. And it's the exact same reasons that the next coach coming here will come in and win games. And you got to bring someone in that's different to give yourself a chance so that you can do what VCU does, so you could do what St. Louis does. I don't think there's an excuse in the world why Dayton, with as cocky and arrogant as this fan base and program has been for so long, can now all of a sudden sit back and say, hey, we're all about the tournament. We're all about this and that. And when we're not accomplishing it, we're going to take the student season tickets away if they have any kind of criticisms to throw away. That's weird behavior. That's soft loser behavior. This program's in a weird spot right now. It's in a weird spot. And I thought that this program was built to withstand the changes in college basketball, and it's actually one of the programs that got exposed because of the identity crisis. They don't know who they are. And until they figure out who they are, and we talked about this with Paul Frischner earlier in the week about the identity crisis that Dayton has, they don't believe they're a springboard job. I actually think if you lean into the springboard mindset, you're going to attract really good coaches who you're going to come here and say, hey, come here 3-4 years, give it your all. We'll get you to a bigger job. You'll get us to the tournament. We'll get tournament wins. We'll get exposure. And then we'll just keep this train rolling with the next one. Well, that's dangerous. That's what VCU's doing. And they just pummeled you by 30. That's what St. Louis is doing right now. And that coach is about to get some high major job and get some major payday. And St. Louis will get another good up-and-coming coach that's going to go in there and keep that train rolling, all while we sit back and watch Anthony Grant head into year 10, and he'll get a transfer too, and they'll beat up on a Power 5, high major team or two, and then they'll lose to LaSalle, and then they'll lose to George Washington. They'll lose to the teams in the middle of the pack, and then that's what will ultimately keep them out of the NCAA tournament, and then we'll start this over again. Rinse, cycle, repeat. Because 2 times in 9 years, they've technically made the tournament. And what do both of those years have in common? You have an all-NBA player on your roster. Duran's not there, and technically Obi's not an all-NBA player. But you have an NBA player on your roster. So do we have to just sit back and wait for him to get an NBA player for them to that's not the case with VCU and St. Louis and others. I don't know. Let's go to Shaw. Shaw, thanks for holding. You're on live, man.
How you doing, bud?
Oh, good. Good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Congratulations on the new puppy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see.
I was going to steer this conversation to last night and Wright State to the other side of the city, but that last caller sent me over the moon.
AJ's a good dude. AJ's a good dude.
I know
so
he is.
I'm going to be defensive of him. All right. I don't know AJ, but
nice.
AJ, when I started doing this show solo, even before Schlemmer, AJ was one of the loyal ones. So I always, which is funny because you're loyal and I treat you like crap. But that's besides the point. But no, AJ, that's why. I think that's one of the few times AJ's called in and we've had differing opinions. But no, him and I vastly disagree 100% on this. But I think we all have a soft spot for our teams, and we always try. I do it with the Browns, I do it with Wright State, I do it with a lot of my teams. So I get it. Him and I disagree on this as far as that goes, and I think you and I are on the same side.
We are on the same side, and I'll be nice. But I also consider myself somewhat of a Flyer faithful as well. Yes, I don't go to every single game, and yes, I don't have season tickets and yada 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 and whatnot. But comparing Archie Miller to the coach right now, Anthony Grant, it's like oil and water. Archie had coached there for 6 seasons. He had 3 double-digit losing seasons. One of those went to an Elite 8. Anthony Grant, every season but 1, 2, if you count the 2020 season, will be double-digit losses once they lose on Sunday, and then they continue losing for the rest of the season. So that's not comparable to me. Archie Miller made the NCAA tournament 4 out of his 6 seasons. Anthony Grant has made it 1, possibly 2, if you count 2020. Archie Miller coached a quote-unquote a system basketball team as well. I understand it's a different era, but one could argue it was even harder for Dayton back then because he couldn't go buy players like Anthony Grant can now. And you want to come to me and say that Anthony Grant it has difficult time buying players. Well, then how come all these other small market and small Division I basketball teams can go buy players? Grand Canyon can, Xavier can, all these other teams can, yet they continuously can make the tournament every single year while Dayton is sitting at home hoping to make the NIT. Comparing Archie Miller to Anthony Grant just doesn't make sense to me. And why the fan base just sits here and is okay with Anthony Grant losing double-digit games every single year and losing to teams like Loyola Chicago and DePaul and everybody else that they lose to every single year. It just doesn't make sense to me. It literally defies logic to me. I don't know. I got nothing else really for it. It's because I want to be nice, so I don't want to just continue bearing it. But like you said it all pretty much throughout too, is like, I mean, you want to sit here and on one hand, we want to talk about how we bring 13,000 fans into the arena, and we are quote unquote the face of the A10. And then when you get treated and act, and you want the fans to treat you like the face of the A10, you cower and you back down into a corner, and you want to talk about everything that's hard and difficult for you. That's why it's hard for me to say that UD is the face of the A10. Possibly 9-10 years ago, UD was the face of the A10. But as I already mentioned, it's kind of hard to be the face of a conference when you never make the NCAA tournament and you're carrying the banner for said conference. Throughout that time, like you have VCU, George Mason's made it more, Richmond's made it more. The list goes on and on and on and on of A10 teams that have made the big dance more than what UD has in the last 9 years. And I don't know. I just don't.
I'm with you. And like I said, when I was like, oh, well, it can't get much worse. They're not going to get in that large bid this season, blah, blah, blah. I think it can get a lot worse because, they just got beat by, when you look at what happened against, VCU 99-73, St. Louis 102-71, they have to play both of those teams again. Now it'll be at home and you'll have, 12, 13,000 fans. That'll make those games a lot closer, but and then they have to go to George Mason on the 18th next week. So we'll see. But they got to get past Davidson at home on Sunday. Like, I don't know, like a week off. I mean, you get, an ass whooping like that, 99-73 at VCU on the 6th, and you don't play for 9 days. I don't know if that 9 days is a good thing or not. You either just sit there and you boil in your misery for 9 days, or you get a chance to refuel. We'll find out on Sunday. We'll see. But
yeah, we'll definitely find out which side of the spectrum it's going to be on Sunday. Like the 9 days could very well be a very good thing leading into the tournament. Maybe the team got whipped into shape. Maybe there was something going on internally that got fixed, and maybe some things got changed lineup wise and yada, yada, yada. And we move into this thing, and the team basically looked at this 9 day. We look back at the end of March, and this 9 day break was the thing that turned the whole season around. But if they walk in Sunday at 4:00 and they look like what they did against VCU, yeah, they may be able to pull that out because Davidson's not that very good of a team and they're at home. But then you roll up to George Mason the very next week. They've had their troubles against Duquesne as long as I've watched Dayton basketball. For whatever reason, Duquesne's just one of those teams that gives Dayton problems. Then, like you said, St. Louis, you go to George Washington, always been a difficult road game. At Richmond, difficult road game. And then you come home to get your tail whipped against VCU again. So there's at least double-digit losses there. And the expectation is more, and it's not just from the AD. I think it's more. The more expectations are coming that are put out there by the fans themselves. They're the ones putting out the money. They're the ones that go to the games every single night. They're the ones that prop this program up when you talk about it to all the fans around here. So I don't think it's just a AD and a school thing to why the expectations are what it is. And I agree with you. It's not just the students wearing the shirts and how much of a coward move that was, having them take those shirts off. I think that is the talk amongst the town, is what is going on, because it doesn't make sense that the program that boasts about making all the money, and they have all the money, and they do all this stuff of talking about the money and how good the basketball program is, and now we're in the money era, and we're worse than what we were 9 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like Dayton, with all the money inside, I felt like I thought Dayton would thrive in this era. I didn't think they'd be the ones getting exposed in this era, which is kind of because they carried themselves a certain way. So they're either getting exposed or they're just making really bad roster decisions with the NIL. There's, and to be honest, there's times where this roster, and Shaw, I appreciate you. I do got to bounce. There's times where this roster, they look like a bunch of guys that got paid a lot of money. And I'm just saying, and I don't mean in a good way. It looks like a bunch of guys that got paid some money, and they were more passionate about the money than about the basketball side of things, which is the complete opposite of what Dayton Flyer basketball is. So who knows? Damon Hahn on the Justin Kinder Show Facebook page says, I feel like we as fans should be harder on our coaches and players. I agree. These are not these are not like, and I get that a lot on the Facebook page. I had some UD fans say, that these are college kids. And I said, no, even when I was in college, no one said, oh, Kinder, you're 19 years old. You're a kid. Like, no, I got treated like an adult because that's what we are. I don't know why I always got a good kick out of when we handled athletes with kid gloves back in the day. And I get a bigger kick out of it when they try to do it in today's climate, when these guys are professional athletes. They are. They're amateur professional athletes, but they're professional athletes. So when you're getting paid that, when you have Anthony Grant making millions and you have these players making a ton of money, yes, I'm sorry. They deserve to be criticized because it's all about winning. That's what it's a business. It's a business at the end of the day. I don't like it, but that's the reality of it. All right. Shout out to everyone for tuning in and hanging out this week. Shout out to my guy, Paul Frischner, with the Rebound Rundown. He comes on weekly and we recap, Flyers, Wright State, Ohio State. Obviously, the Redhawks have been a big talking point this season. And Mark Adams, who's going to be on the call tonight at 9:00. The Redhawks 24-0, looking to get to 25-0. Remain in the top 25 discussion, as well as the at-large conversation. We discussed all of that. If you missed the conversation with Mark Adams, he weighed in on Dayton. He's going to be on the call on ESPN2 on Sunday at 4:00 when Davidson's at Dayton. So you'll want to hear what Mark Adams had to say about your Flyers. So go and check that out on the Justin Kinder Show Facebook page and YouTube channel. That wraps it up for us here tonight. I hope everyone has a great weekend. And until next week, this has been the Justin Kinder Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The Justin Kinder Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Connoisseur